Today's question, is it a cookie or is it a biscuit? I think this could be a real hot topic of debate here. So let's check out the video focusing on the ANZAC Biscuit. Let's go. So first of all, I've just stumbled across Julian O'Shea. His channel is really good, focusing on a lot of Australian stuff. So you Aussies, go and check his channel out. Now, secondly, this could be an interesting debate because I would say in the UK, we use both words. We use biscuit and cookie. And hopefully, as the video goes on, I'll explain what the differences are for us and what we class as a cookie and what we class as a biscuit. So hopefully it'll be an interesting video.
This is an ANZAC biscuit. They're sometimes chewy, they're sometimes crunchy, but what it can never be, legally, is called a cookie. Now this isn't about some archaic law that's still on the books, but it's about something that legal scholars have called the most protected word.
Sorry, did that say why it's illegal to own a guinea pig in Switzerland? What? Britain's absurd laws still make it illegal to wear armour in Parliament? These are laws that were passed probably years ago that, no one even thinks about these days.
Called the most protected word in the world. It's a story about how for over a century and to this very day a government department is regulating the name and recipe of this humble biscuit.
Straight away I might be a little bit controversial because I would say the ANZAC Biscuit almost looks more like a cookie. I'll say that now and I'll explain a bit more later on probably.
Firstly, and particularly for our American friends, let's talk about language. Here in Australia, we spell colour like this, baseball like this.
Oh God, baseball. Baseball, cricket, yeah.
But the word relevant to us is biscuit. So this is what a biscuit looks like in the USA, and this is what a biscuit looks.
Is it me? Hang on. I'm pretty sure they just look like scones. They are definitely scones or scones, whatever way you want to. They're scones, aren't they? They are definitely scones, except the digestive biscuits, but that seems to be the odd one out there.
Like in the USA, and this is what a biscuit looks like here in Australia. Now
Which one of these biscuits are the greatest biscuit in the world? I can tell you, and you can't argue with me because I am correct on this one. The bourbon chocolate biscuit. Oh, I love a bourbon. I could eat a whole packet of bourbons in one go. Now that is a biscuit. Oh, what a biscuit that is. Yeah.
In Australia. Now the other part of the name, ANZAC. This dates back to World War I when Australians fought alongside New Zealanders in the Gallipoli.
There was no New Zealand. Where was New Zealand on the map? Hello, pics.
Campaign. And they were called the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. This was a source of national pride, the very first time that this new nation had sent troops as a national entity. And while the history is a bit unclear, the origins of ANZAC biscuits goes back to this time. And it's said that with their robust ingredients, they would survive a journey from Australia to the troops overseas. And the phrase ANZAC came into common use, and people started to use it in their business. For hats, for tea rooms, for boots, and for soaps. Members of the community.
This video is funny because he's talking very straight, very informative, and then he's adding he's taking New Zealand off the map. He's got Mr. T on the teapot.
Community thought that it shouldn't be used like this in business, and the Australian government agreed. In 1916, the Australian government put the first restriction on the word ANZAC, meaning you couldn't use it for a business name or a trademark, but also for personal use, like your home or your boat or your vehicle. Now it was 1916 when James Armstrong was convicted for breaking these laws with his ANZAC art photo enlargement, and this started a century of restrictions and regulations. And here's how the rules work. To use the word ANZAC, you have to apply for and get permission from the Department of Veteran Affairs. And this is how the process normally works. You come up with your idea, you request it, and they say no. In 1934, Australia's beloved aviator Charles Kingford Smith An absolute badass who was the first person to do a trans-Pacific flight from the USA to Australia asked the Australian government for permission to call his plane ANZAC. Now, he fought in the Gallipoli campaign. He was an ANZAC. And what did the Australian government say? No. The Australian government's been pretty heavy-handed about this, but there are some personal areas where it's okay. You can name your pet ANZAC, and you're allowed to call your kid ANZAC as well. But if they grow up and want to name a business after themselves, then that's banned.
Who calls their children ANZAC? If you know anyone that has a child called ANZAC, please let me know, because that seems a very strange name.
Now back to our biscuits. For their first few decades of life, they weren't really sold. It was something you would make at home. But when people did want to sell them, what would they call them? They're called ANZAC Biscuits. And here's what the regulations say. Application for ANZAC Biscuits are normally approved and are referred to as ANZAC Biscuits or ANZAC Slice. And here's the key. Referring to these products as ANZAC cookies is generally not approved due to the non-Australian overtones. That's right, it's un-Australian to call these a cookie.
To be fair, now, as I was saying at the start, I think in the UK we use both terms, biscuit and cookie. But if you have a cup of tea, you have a biscuit. You have a rich tea. You have a digestive. You have a bourbon. You have a custard cream. You have biscuits. You never have a cookie with a cup of tea. The term cookie definitely feels American, or United Statesian. So actually, it sort of makes sense that they want to keep it Australian. Australians come from the UK, you know what I mean? A lot of the ways of life are derived from the UK. So it actually makes sense that you'd call it a biscuit.
And prohibited by law to the tune of $10,200 for an individual, $51,000 for a company, and up to 12 months jail. And the Department of Veteran Affairs will only give it their tick of approval if you comply with the original recipe. That is, if you add chocolate chips to these, that is against the law. So you might be thinking, surely an Australian government department isn't really regulating the recipe of biscuits. Well, you might be surprised. Now, the spirit of this law is to protect the tone of the word ANZAC. And to stop this kind of thing, when Lads Mag Zoo Weekly tried to have a special ANZAC Centenary edition and had to pull it due to public outcry and not getting approval. In 2008, it was found out that Subway wasn't using traditional ingredients and they were ordered to change their recipe. Now, they've had a lot worse scandals than this one, but when they worked out it wasn't cost effective, they stopped selling the biscuits. Ice cream makers Gelato Messina was required to change their name from
Oh my god, that looks quite nice.
ANZAC Bicky ice cream to ANZAC Biscuit ice cream. In 2017, a Reddit post described this as un-Australian, a vegan cauliflower shortbread ANZAC cookie.
To be fair, right, he's saying it's un-Australian. It just generally looks disgusting anyway, doesn't it? It just doesn't look very nice. And ANZAC cookie, yeah, it's... you're right, it doesn't sound right, does it even?
Shortbread ANZAC cookie. And this got mainstream news. Now, the company making it had no idea about this law and quickly withdrew the product. And across the ditch, New Zealand have passed similar laws. Where ANZAC biscuits are allowed, ANZAC cookies are not. So you might be thinking, yeah, but I'm not in Australia or New Zealand, so these laws don't apply to me. I'm going to start my own ANZAC cookie company. Or ANZAC Keks Fiere Taike. Kongti Banqui ANZAC. Société.
I just noticed in the bottom corner with apologies to all French speakers or with apologies to all Chinese speakers.
The cookies ANZAC. ANZAC Cookie Company. Sounds good, but it might not be so easy. In 2003, Australia and New Zealand made a submission to the World Intellectual Property Organisation to protect the word ANZAC under Article 60, which restricts the use of national symbols and emblems. And this was accepted. So all 164 signatories of the WIPO are now required to restrict its use and ban any trademarks featuring the word ANZAC. And that's the story about how ANZAC became one of the world's most protected words and why wherever you travel, you'll probably not see this called a cookie. So I say eat up and enjoy the history and tradition of one of Australia's iconic foods. Because when it comes to the recipe and the name, the Australian government is one tough cookie.
Really, actually, it's fascinating on trying to keep the Australian feel almost and whatnot. But so I said right at the start what I think is a cookie and what is a biscuit. Is it bad to say that actually I would class that as a cookie? And I'll tell you why. I'm happy to say why. Now, when you think of biscuits, you quite often, it's tricky because you get some anomalies, but you quite often think of smooth. Cookies seem to be, a bit of the cookie dough placed down, and it just slowly melts out when it's cooked. Can you stop attacking me? Whereas a biscuit is normally cut from a rolled out dough. So we use both terms. I don't know about you guys, but the looks of that would be a cookie, because I assume you would have a lump of dough and you would place it on the tray to cook. Now, I will find this out, because our next cooking episode with me and Charlie will be on an ANZAC biscuit. All right, so I will find out how the process of cooking it is. But if it's cooked, like I said, in a kind of a dough that... She's a psycho. She is turned into a psycho. If the process is from a lump of dough just placed, and then it slowly melts down, then I see that as a cookie. But I can completely understand why you'd want to keep it as a biscuit. The language coming from the UK language, so it's therefore Australian. You don't want it to be like the Americans. But it's a really interesting one, especially the fact that they've gone to... you can't call it a cookie anywhere in the world. They have gone to those lengths, and I think that's odd. But you can sort of understand why for the national recognition, if that makes sense. What's your favourite biscuit? What's your favourite? Biscuit. What's your favourite biscuit? Mine is a bourbon, hands down. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.